So when you're a large corporation and you don't have the in-house capability or the want to do something, every time you're going out there to hire someone as a contractor, you're putting a lot on the line.
This episode of the BloomX podcast is brought to you by Nava Wilson LLP. Nava Wilson LLP provides services in real estate, corporate law, and litigation, and is committed to increasing access to and awareness of the justice system. Nava Wilson is also the legal advisor for Y-Space, York University's incubator, and The Hub, the University of Toronto Scarborough campus's incubator. They are willing to provide up to $5,000 worth of services to a select few startups in Toronto. If you're a startup looking for access to legal services, contact us at the link below to find out more. All right, we're on with Dikshant from Tournet. Dikshant, man, so you came out of the Hub as well from UTSC. As a student, you started one company that didn't work out the way you wanted, and from that led out Tournet, as I understand it, right? You came here a few days ago and had a great presentation talk about your life as a founder and how you started a company that led up into the main line of business you're doing, which now allows you to work with many other companies, many other startups, help build companies from the ground up and from a technical standpoint. So you're really fascinating in that sense. So we had this conversation a lot about how you're not a technical co-founder. You're not a programmer in any kind of sense, but you discovered a way to analytically break down software and understand the architecture of it. And the way you deal with complex problems is very interesting. And especially for the age you're at, you hit way above your weight class in that kind of sense. So I had a pleasure of working with you and learning from you as well. So I want to break that down. So Tournet is your main line of business right now, right?
Yes.
It stands for Toronto, India, IT.
Yes.
Right? So let's talk about that. Where did that come from, and how you built that business?
Sure, man. So thank you for having me here to talk about this. First of all, Tournet was really, it came out of anger, it came out of need, it came out of sleepless nights, it came out of passion.
Yep.
It was something that I can't explain whether it was one thing that led me to start the company. Maybe it was a series of events. Mm-hmm. But those series of events, as I recall it, the first one was my co-op term with RBC. So I'm working at this huge bank that employs 100,000 people around the world, that does billions of dollars in revenue. And I'm sitting there as a co-op student in TNO, which is Technology and Operations. I was a technology associate there. And I'm dealing with offshore technology teams. Some were in Ukraine, some were in India, some were in China. And my manager's trying to sort of figure out what did we tell them to do, and what they did were just two completely different edges.
Yep.
Right? Like, if we communicated A, they delivered Z after $120 million, right, into the project. And I'm just going, holy hell, how does anyone do that, right? The reality though was that the vendor at that time was in India, who took this project and just ripped us off. Like, they knew that it was too late for us to step out, and they knew that we would pay another $100 million as a bank to go from Z back to A. So they were just murdering us in terms of charging us whatever they wanted, wherever they wanted. The management on the RBC front, on basically who were managing the vendors, we were doing whatever we could. The problem in a large organization is the person who negotiated the deal with vendor is here, and the person who's dealing with the vendor is here. So, there's so many communications gap that came in, but the one thought out of that was that this vendor is ripping us off as a company, as RBC, and I couldn't stand that for two reasons. One, because I came from India, and that gave a bad impression of all Indians in IT. Second, they were ripping off my company, even though, I was not a shareholder of RBC or owned RBC at any point, but I was working there, right? So it pissed me off enough, and I said, one day I'm just going to start a company that's going to do things right, that's going to make software the way it's supposed to be made, that's going to understand the users behind, the user journeys behind. That's going to understand what kind of digital experiences does this organization really need. And really work with them step by step and step to step to get them to where they were. So I'm just a co-op student. You have to understand this is me at 18 years old, right? 18 or maybe 19, I'm not too sure. I came in 2011. I was 17 and a half when I got into university. So my co-op, I was probably 19. And a 19-year-old, I was just angry about what was happening. And then suddenly this whole news breaks out, that RBC is hiring vendors to get rid of Canadian jobs. And, I'm basically now, the people I hate, which are these vendors, they were everywhere, doesn't matter. These vendor companies that RBC was using, I hate these, but I was supposed to defend them because RBC was caught down by this, national propaganda that RBC was letting go of Canadian nationals and people who worked there for 20 years and hiring vendors who have operations overseas. And that just killed me even more, right? So at the end of the 4 months, actually I was there for 8 months. My initial co-op term was 4 months, and then they told me to do another 4, and I did. And the last week of that 8 months, I said, I got too sick of working there in terms of looking at practices and what was going on. And I said, I just got to do something about it. And that day, the last day in RBC, I registered the company Tournet. So it wasn't just RBC, because when I got there, that's what opened my eyes that we need to open a company that produces software, not just for the sake of producing software, but for the sake of creating digital legacies that someone's going to use and make sense of, right? And so when I came in RBC, I saw that was clearly not happening. But even then, even after that, registration of company at the end of my day on RBC, you just don't start a company by registering it, right? I was too foolish to think, I'm 19 years old, I've registered a company, I'm going to go out there and try to build a team, try to make sales, try to build a product deck, try to build my service stack. That clearly didn't happen. So I came back to university. I think 1920, I don't remember, but this was 2013. I came back to university. I said, I'm going to finish my courses. While I'm finishing my courses, I'm going to start working on this company. So as you rightly said, Tournet today is a digital product enabler. So we work with small, medium, large enterprises and startups, whether pre-seed, seed, or Series A, to help them build technological products. So whether they're hardware, software, or they're just pure software, or it's a mobile app, it's a web app, it's an internal system, doesn't matter. We try and understand digital journeys and convert them into legacies. And we don't use the word legacy lightly. Everything that we touch, we try and put a lot of thought into the product itself before we even write a single line of code. So for us, software is life. For us, mobile apps, web apps, internal apps, or communication between human and technology is what inspires us, what makes us wake up in the morning as a company, and what we love delivering and doing. But it wasn't always like this. So when I started the company, when I registered the company to when I started actually working in the company, there was a 3-year gap. And that gap, I was basically learning as much as I could. So I came back in 2013 to university after I'd already registered the company. I knew what I wanted to do vaguely, but I also knew that I didn't know how to begin, where to begin. And everything that I wanted to do needed money, man. You wanna start a website, that costs money. You wanna attend an event, that costs money, right? There are very few things as a startup you can do that only require your time or just your skill set, right? Especially when you're trying to build a scalable business. So I took 3 years to really define our business model, to really learn that business model in another company. So not a lot of people know, perhaps you don't either, Ravi, but I actually worked full time in a technology company out of the Netherlands.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, it's
In
called
Netherlands.
in
Or
Toronto. So I opened their Canadian offices. I was the only employee they had,
Okay.
and I basically met the CEO at a bar, and he said, "Yeah, I'm just here in business. I come to Canada. I'm trying to open an office here. We have 2 clients, and we need an account manager for those clients, and maybe get more clients in this city or in this country." So I said, "Okay, well, I'm still a student at U of T, but I'm looking into starting something of my own like this. So I wouldn't mind learning, as to how you do this." He's like, "Would you work on X dollars per year?" I said, "Sure, why not?" Like, I was going to work for free anyway.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
And he said, "Will you do this?" And I said, "Okay, let me think about it. I'll get back to you." Sort of thinking about how my vision of business actually fit into this company. That CEO was trying to convince me that instead of opening your own company, once you get into the company, you realize that, you can just do so much more with Nintech Canada than start your own,
Yeah.
which is the company's name, Nintech, in Netherlands. So I said, "Okay, let me get back to you." I got back to them and I said, "Okay, here's what I want. I want to work directly with you, Mr. CEO, so I can learn. That's my condition number one. I really don't care about the money, and I could care less about everything else that you were offering me, which is, car rentals and things like that." And I said, "All I want to do is I want to learn, but I want to be honest with you. I'm only going to be here 1 year. After that first year, I'm going to go start my own company." So that time, clearly, he thought I was joking. I'm a 20-year-old kid sitting in front of a 50-year-old, CEO who runs a company that has 1,400 employees globally.
Yeah, and which you said no to salary to.
Yeah, and I said, "No, I don't care about the money, and I don't care about all of this. I just want to learn from you. I want to learn the craft that you have mastered in the last 10 years, right?" And, his immediate response was, "I love that. Let's start working together." And then he passed me on to the CEO of their Indian offices. And, he sort of said, "Okay, I'm coming to Canada. Let's meet. Let's set some expectations. Let's understand. These are the 2 accounts you want to manage." That was basically my first dip into software development services. Like, that was my dip into, okay, here's how a smaller company, here's how it feels like to be on the other end of RBC. So I saw the client side, but I never knew what existed on the vendor side and why were they ripping us off, right? And when I joined this company, I worked there for a year, I realized why they were ripping off organizations like my first employer, right? And that was because they could. It was so easy, right? So this company, from a vendor perspective, was no different that I started working for. And, very quickly, it was it was absolutely clear that, they would go to these large corporations. I won't name them because I'm actually not sure if the NDA is still valid or not for those accounts. But, we would go to those large corporations and say, "This website is going to cost $1 million to build." And when I say website, I'm genuinely talking about like a WordPress website that a computer science student here at U of T could make in like maybe 2 weeks,
Okay.
right?
And was that because they're charging a premium just because of brand image? Like,
So when you're a large corporation and you don't have the in-house capability or the want to do something, every time you're going out there to hire someone as a contractor, you're putting a lot on the line. First thing that you're putting on the line is your time. What if this vendor doesn't deliver? I've now lost a month of time, right? What is a month of time to a company that wants to do something with their website? It's huge. It's tens of millions of dollars, right? Suddenly, this website that couldn't cost, with the whatever math you take, more than 50,000 or 20,000 even, was sold for $1 million.
geez, yeah.
And it's not like these vendors stopped there. Like, it's not that these vendors said, "Okay, we've made $1 million, let's give them a good product." It was like, okay, they were stupid enough to give us $1 million. Let's get another $500,000 from them on change requests, right? So I got pissed off. I'm like, okay, now I've seen how vendors really do it. When I start my own company, I'm going to just revolutionize the way we engage with our clients. We're not going to do all this, right? So I'm making my business model that's going to be unique compared to all these other vendors. And this gig that I did for a year really helped me do that. I resigned within a year, as I promised the CEO. And my reason for resigning were two. One, I wanted to start my company. And second was, that was the best goddamn 1 year of my life in terms of knowing what not to do.
Yeah.
Like in terms of knowing what do you not want to do when you want to start your own company. That company grew too quickly, too fast, had too much expenditure. So if a website costed any other vendor $20,000 and they wanted to sell it for $50,000, to this company it costed them $50,000 and they were selling it for $1 million, right? Mm-hmm. So I learned a lot about how not to grow so quickly, how not to get excited on opportunities that may not be so good for you. So I'll quickly give you an example. I passed on $3 million worth of revenue year one of the company. Year one, I got an opportunity with a large parking company. I can't name them, but very large parking company. They're in North America. They're near every airport, right? They wanted to build a web app and a mobile app so people could book parking spaces before they went to the airport. And I said no to that. And I'm so proud of the fact that I said no to that, is because if I had said yes and said, suppose I had taken 20% of that revenue in that year and booked that as revenue, I wouldn't be able to perform on it. I knew that my capabilities at that time weren't enough to justify a $3 million software development. And I was, for a lack of a better term, I was man enough in the organization to say, we're not going to touch this. We're very new. We're going to start slow, develop the capability, develop the people, develop the knowledge base so we can get to a point where we can sell these $3 million accounts. We can sell these $7 million accounts, sell $10 million projects, right? And so I really believed in that concept of walking, then sort of running, and then sort of sprinting, right? So,
yeah, that systematic approach of growth. I mean, that takes a lot of discipline, for sure.
Right.
That's really hard to say when you're just starting up, to say no to that kind of money. But I get your reasoning, but does it make sense to get the opportunity and sell it to a different organization, like your previous employer, right?
Yeah. So reputation mattered a lot to me. It continues to matter a lot to me. In this industry, in the industry I'm in, which is, a digital agency or a software development shop or a technology consulting company, reputation is really not a thing. Like, you go around the block, it's all whatever's in the contract is in the contract. If I tell you to write this font differently, it costs you another $1,000, and change requests after change requests. So it's a very consulting approach, No, nothing different than the big fours, nothing different than anything else. They want their business is to charge per hour, so they charge per hour. For me, it was, okay, I take this $3 million in revenue and I give it to a company that is able to do it. And if they're not able to do it, I'm taking on that risk of $3 million, right?
Yeah.
Suppose this company takes $2 million from me and I keep $1 million. I'm just giving an example, right? I keep $1 million and I manage the project. I'm facing the client. By the way, this is how majority of mobile app development companies in Toronto are. Yeah. They just don't show you that. There are a bunch of companies.
They get the contract and subcontract out.
Exactly. And you know a few of them because I've told you about them. I'm not going to name them and defame them now. But basically, I didn't want to be that middleman because I was not confident in anyone else's capability. And imagine, RBC was not dealing with a small vendor.
Yeah.
You have to understand, RBC was dealing with probably one of the largest companies in technology in the Asia Pacific region. Mm-hmm. And they messed up.
Yeah.
So how do I take my word give it to someone saying, yeah, I'll build all of this. This is the journey. This is for mobile. This is for web. This is for your internal system. This is how your van guys who are going to go pick up people will know that, okay, there's someone who's parked. Like, I just couldn't do it. I couldn't take that money and say, yeah, I'll build it, go out and try to build an internal sort of either contracted out or building an internal capability so fast, because I would have failed. As I said, I never went down that path, so I don't know what would have happened, but I could imagine what would have happened, which was I would have failed miserably. My reputation would have gone down the pipe. I would have never been able to do any business with that group again. Granted that I didn't get business from them first year, but I did get another business from them second year, because they understood that I said no when I couldn't deliver, right?
So it fed
So I
forward.
think, yeah, it absolutely does. Like, I honestly think that you cannot sustain a long-term relationship in any kind of business, whether it's consulting business, development business, or even a retail business. You cannot sustain a long-term loyalty or a relationship with your customers unless and until you're being completely honest with them. Like 100% honesty. And that policy, man, has never ever disappointed me. Like, if you're honest with your employees, if you're honest with your core team, if you're honest with your shareholders, if you're honest with your board, if you're honest with your customers, there is no power in the entire world that's not going to show you the next step. Like, today, a lot of companies understand this and they're going about it this way. Back in the days, I mean, you look at case studies, and you know they teach us all of this in universities, whether it's Harvard courses or Harvard Business Review cases or U of T, it doesn't matter. But they teach you, how there's always this gap between, top leadership and then, another layer of leadership, and then another layer of leadership, and then employees, and then customers. Like, customers never knew what was going in their bottles that they were drinking, because the top leadership just wanted to protect it so much, and the laws were created to protect these companies. There was lobbying done on patent laws and all of this, right? In today's day and age, think about any company that you buy from and tell me that it doesn't, what matters to you most when you buy from them. And I guarantee you the bottom line will be transparency and knowing how well they do what they do.
That's awesome, man. So let's flip back to Tournet, right? So you started right off the bat. You called it Tournet because you knew exactly what you wanted to do.
Yeah.
You started entering the market space. Like, what was your first few clients like?
Oh, yeah. So officially launched the company in late 2015, early 2016. First few clients, as you can imagine, you're a consulting company. That's what we were positioned as before. Now our business has completely changed. Even the core services is still the same. But back in 2016, majority of the customers we got, majority of them, they were basically looking for a cheaper solution. We didn't have a capability that we could say, okay, we're worth, $1,000 an hour. Do you understand what I'm saying? Like, Deloitte's worth X amount an hour because they've been doing this for so long, right? Like, a lawyer is worth X amount an hour because they know where to look and how quickly to get back to you. We didn't know any of this. We're just starting out. So the only customers we could get initially were the customers who would even give us a project. And that was a mistake I made, which was I took projects that were costing me, let's say, I'm going to give you for instance, if that project costed me, let's say $100,000, I accepted $50,000 for it. But it's not that I did this knowingly, I did this unknowingly. I thought that the project costed me 40 grand, so I can sell it for 50 grand. But in technology, you want an app built like this. It's very hard to assume that the developer who's going to make this app is going to take those many hours to build or not. right? It was a very traditional model. Our model at that time was we would give you an hourly rate, and if you gave us a requirement of, okay, what you wanted to build,
Yeah.
we'll sort of consult and say, maybe you should build it this way. And if you build it this way, it's going to cost you this much. And clearly, because that was a very traditional approach, it didn't last very long. Like to be fair, a lot of technology companies still use that approach.
Yeah.
When I say a lot, maybe like 80% plus still will quote you per hour, per project, right? Per month, or I'll give you these many developers and at this cost. In 2016, I realized that if your developers are telling you that it's going to cost you 40 grand and you sell it for 50, you've just lost it.
Yeah.
You've broken your back. You can never get up again, because that's what was happening to me. I was taking one project that would cost me, 60% more than what I charged for it. And then I'd do the same thing. I'd take another project to get out of this hole. And then it was basically a credit cycle.
Yeah.
I just didn't realize fast enough that I'm not making any money.
Yeah.
All I'm doing is taking a new project to cover the hole for the next the old project. And at some point, this cycle is going to end. When this cycle ends, on that last month, I'll be out my loss, which may be $100,000, maybe $200,000, maybe $500,000, who knows? So I quickly realized that, and I said, I'm not going to do this. I'm going to start really digging deep into business problems and then proposing technology solutions for them, and then selling my services to customers who understand that there is not a single cost per hour for a developer. I will be very honest with them and say, this costed me X. Can you pay me X multiplied by 1.2, right? And I found those customers. That was the good thing. I was fortunate enough when I found, this newspaper group. I'm going to name them because we can. It's Snap Newspaper Group. I don't know if you know about them, but
Out of Markham?
yeah, they were out of what's the up north, more than north of Markham. What's that?
Stouffville.
It's north of Stouffville, Newmarket.
Newmarket. Yeah.
I don't know if it's south of Stouffville or north of Stouffville, but so I was very honest with them. I said, I'm going to give you this person to do this. I believe it's going to cost this, but if it doesn't, I'm going to be very honest with you and share my cost. They said, fine. So they digged me out of the hole. We built so many things for them, right? Not a lot of people know, but Snap Newspaper Group is not just a newspaper group. They also do websites and all the other things for their clients who advertise on Snap, right? And they did this augmented reality app. So if there's an ad in the newspaper, you just scan it,
Yeah.
and it'll play, right?
I remember my dad was super into that.
Yeah. So a lot of that is there. Having said that, just you'll find customers, if you're completely honest with them, they will actually gain what they have to from you in terms of the value that you proposed, but actually help you get out of the problem you're in when you're starting out. You're always in a problem when you're starting out, right? Reminds me of McDonald's. McDonald's makes sure that their vendors who they buy cups from or they buy fish from, McDonald's makes sure that they're always strong. Like McDonald's makes sure that this fish vendor is not going bankrupt.
Yeah.
Like we're paying them enough margin so they can sustain, so they can give us a longer term supply. If McDonald's fish supplier tomorrow breaks down, what do you think is going to happen to McDonald's? There's no fish or fillet, man. Like it's gone.
Yeah, it's gone.
And that's 100 times more valuable than paying a cent more for this fish, right? So I think they understood that. Yeah.
So keep your vendors alive.
Keep your vendors, keep your team, keep your employees always happy. Keep listening to them. Like if a vendor is saying, you're killing me, I can't do this price, man, honestly, next time, don't bargain.
Yeah.
Because if there is no next time, and you've built a business model around that pricing, you're failing and you're putting that vendor up for failure.
Yeah.
And the moment that happens, it's not sustainable and it's not scalable, right?
Don't you feel this happens a lot in the market though? Like a lot of people are doing short-term plays They try to bleed out their vendors, just focus on the short term and just move on.
But you answered the question yourself, right? Like, there are a lot of these guys who come and go.
Yeah.
Like, since I started the company, I've had 4 or 5 competitors who went out and nominated themselves for PwC Innovators of the Year award, and they got it. They paid for it. Like, you nominate yourself, but they came and they went. They come in, they get let's say X million dollars worth of project, they mess it up, and they leave. And this is not just my industry, any industry. They'll always come. They will try to basically, not a lot of them have bad intentions. It's just that they're trying to play the business the right way. Like, they're trying to deal with their vendors in a way that makes most prudent sense to them, right? Like, I'll quickly give you an example. You want to print brochures, right? You want to print brochures?
Okay.
And a banner. You'll go to a printing company and say, can you give me this? I'll take a 500 now, and maybe I'll come back to you for 1,500. You give them that hope for the next 1,500 to say, okay, well, maybe we give them a decent price now so that they come back for 1,500. That's fine. That's healthy negotiation, right? And that's a one-time thing. So I'm not saying don't negotiate with your vendors. I'm saying negotiate with them, but don't beat them down if you're going to reuse them consistently,
Yep.
right? Because if I get used to the fact that I can use this printing guy's services on an ongoing basis for $1 per booklet, and I end up selling them for $2, suddenly this vendor dies, can't do anything. I go to the next vendor, and he can only sell me the booklet for $1.80. I've built a business model around selling that booklet for $2. I'm messed,
Yeah.
right? I can't just go to the customers and say, now pay me $3, right? So always be in tune of all the, not just the shareholders, but the stakeholders of your business, right? And I have a very small enterprise yet, so whatever I'm telling you is based on whatever I've learned in that small enterprise. As you go larger, you have different sets of problems. Your problem is not negotiating on money anymore. It's negotiating on time and your go-to-market, and how quickly can you launch the new phone with an OLED screen than the competitor can, right? How quickly can we give 5G phones and 5G networks than my competitor? So when you become a large corporation, your challenge is you value time more. When you're a small business, you value cash more. But in my business, in Tournet, I follow the large enterprise approach a little bit more than the small company approach. So I do care about cash flow, but to me, time is king.
Yeah.
Like, if you won't believe, like, if I've got a contract and I have employees that I'm budgeted for and I'm paying them to deliver this contract, and I have even 1% of doubt that they'll not be able to deliver it by this time, I'll actually go pay double to a vendor that I trust will actually get this done in time. So sometimes you value time more.
Yeah. No, definitely. Yeah, I mean, so you've grown Tournet through these contracts and to a sizable enough firm to be able to take bets on smaller companies.
Yeah, so that's interesting, eh?
Yeah. So now you find these interesting startups, and rather than telling companies, it's like, hey, you need a technology solution made, you got to pay X amount to get it made, and they go out and try to raise capital at a lower cap, raise the capital to pay a team or pay a person to like build out the technology solutions. You tell them, hey, I'll take equity, I'll co-invest with you, I'll build this technology solution with you, and together we'll raise capital, we'll build your business up, and I'll exit at a later time. Almost like a private equity kind of play. That's interesting, because not a lot of people are doing that.
Yeah, it's risky.
Yeah, it's risky. Yeah.
It's risky, but companies, and you know this, Ravi, but companies act like they're very founder-centric. So the culture of the company becomes what the culture of the founder is. And, intrinsically, I'm a very risky player, like even personal life. And
Yeah.
So I always loved those risky ventures, even though entrepreneurs are very risk averse, contrary to popular belief. We like to, anticipate and do very educated sort of, analysis and then take steps. But what we started to do in Tournet with that riskiness in mind is we went to startups and we said, what are you trying to do? What difference are you trying to make in the world? And what's stopping you? And this was 2016. And 90% of times, they want to make a real difference in the world, man.
Yep.
And there's a market for this stuff. Like, it's not that you can't build a business and this is all cloudy and, this is all dreamy. They're good ideas. Some of them are brilliant ideas. Some of them are much more than ideas because they have business models carved out of them. They know how are they going to make money, when are they going to start making money, how much profit are they going to make, what equity value will they become of in 10 years. Like, a lot of these startups had what it took in terms of the work that they'd already done to go launch their ventures, to go build on their ventures. 90% of them came back and said, the biggest problem we have is there are two. One, we don't know how to start on our digital product journey. So do we just hire a developer? Do we hire a designer? Do we learn courses online? Because they're not trained to do this in U of T. They're not trained to do this in McGill. They're not trained to do this in Harvard. They're trained to go into a company, become part of an organization, and do the best they can in that role, right? So they just don't know. They don't know, if I want to build an app, where do I start? Do I raise money so I can build a team of developers and designers and testers and market validators? Do I build a board of directors that can sit around us and tell us how to do this? Do I go and raise money from my friends and family and start building the app? Or should I just give up on this, right? So when I realized that there were so many companies, so many individuals, so many partners, so many two-people sort of ventures that had legs to them, that had arms to them, that had, this hidden gem in them, and all they needed was a technology partner who can build their products, show them a roadmap of how to scale that product, and not charge money for it.
Yeah.
That's how it started. Like, so many of them had even letter of intents from large governments saying that the government said, if you can build this service, we'll license it from you, right? And they had no money to go out and build that service, build that app that allows that service, that enables that. So I came in and I said, okay, Tournet needs to do something about it. Tournet needs to go and identify these hidden gems, get them as part of our team, build their app for them against equity, and then grow them to a level where they could exit at some point, where we could exit at some point from their venture and, reap up the benefits of investing. So instead of making the $100 an hour revenue, which is very limited, you can only make so much of it, right? Like $100 an hour, 1,000 hours, what is that, $100,000, right? That's a very traditional business model. And, it's got legs to it, don't get me wrong, but everyone's doing that, right? Everyone's doing that. You got to prove yourself more. You got to continue to control your costs so you can make money off that. You can continue, it's a struggle. At the end of that $100,000 in revenue, you retain 20% gross profit, right? So you're making $20,000 on a $100,000 sale. Versus in this business model, you're basically starting a new company with a startup with sincere founders, committed management team, know what they're doing. There is a large enough market, and there's a large enough problem that needs to be solved. So we go in, suppose, for example, I'll talk about quickly, let's look at an example of Workerbee, right? Or you know what, I'll start with Wark first.
Okay. Yeah.
Wark, why work when you can work? It's
Yeah.
basically that concept.
Nice.
So you can even go to their website, which is gowark.com. Basically, these founders came to me and they said, they were in Whistler at this very, very expensive property. Probably the most expensive property in Canada. And they're at this restaurant, they're trying to get into this restaurant, Milestones. And they see about 45 to 50 tables empty, and there's a 50-minute waiting line.
Mm-hmm.
Like, what is this? Just go to gowark.com.
Gowark.com?
Gowark.com, yeah. So they're saying, what is this? There's tables, there's chairs, there's clearly food in the kitchen. Why are we lining up for 50 minutes or an hour just to get into? Like, why are we waiting?
Yeah.
And then they go ask the manager, and the manager said, well, 5 of our servers who were supposed to show up today didn't show up.
Wow. Yeah.
And they never told us.
With restaurants, they have that big problem with labor, right?
Right?
Yeah.
So they said, okay, well, how many times does this happen? Like, yeah, twice or thrice every week this happens to that one property. Right? So guess what? They didn't wait 50 minutes.
Yeah.
They went to another restaurant, had a glass of beer, and said, we need to do something about this. They came to me and they said, do you believe in this? I said, okay, give me 2 days. I love the idea, I love the concept, but I just need to understand the market size, the problem size, and the core problem behind not showing up to work. Is it that they get busy, or is it that it's lack of maturity and information to the restaurant, or is it that there's not enough talent and there's huge demand? So I went back and I did my research, and turned out there was huge demand for restaurant staff, and then there was huge supply of restaurant staff, and there was this big gap in the connecting of it, and no one really cared to solve it. Well, I shouldn't say no one really, but there are a few companies that are doing a decent job, out in the States, some in Europe, but in Canada there's no one that's doing this specifically for the restaurant industry. So I said, okay, you know what? I'll build the app for you. I'll build a platform, not just an app, where employers can sign up and tell us about whoever they need in the restaurant. And as soon as they type that they need a chef, we'll show them whoever has the ability to be a chef.
Yeah.
And they can filter through sort of, people, and they can call them, they can schedule interviews. And if they like them, they can even book them through the app and through the platform. And on the other hand, the staff, the employees, they needed something like this. A lot, majority of times employees in restaurants don't show up because they forget that they had shifts. Why do they forget? Because majority of restaurants manage schedules on a piece of paper.
Yeah.
That they then circulate in a photo. Right? Like, that's insane.
Yeah.
We're in 2019. It's crazy. Majority of restaurants still today have like a resume box. Drop this in.
Yeah.
Where do those resumes show up? Unless and until it's the need of the hour today. Can you come now? It doesn't work that way, right?
Yeah.
So I love the concept,
So
right?
this is pretty much on-demand labor.
On demand, I won't call it labor because it's politically incorrect, but
Labor
on-demand talent, right?
Yeah.
For the restaurant industry. We're specifically focused on the restaurant industry is because we believe that the way to build digital solutions is that a solution needs to be around a person. And it needs to be launched in one industry. And if it's successful there, then you can scale industries. So the technology is industry agnostic.
Okay.
Right? Tomorrow, if you wanted construction workers, you could put construction workers in there, right? If you want a dentist, we could put dentists in there, right?
Yeah.
If you want a dental hygienist, we could put whatever it is, right? But digital products only succeed when they're built around a person and launched in an industry. Quickly give you an example. Salesforce succeeded not because it was the best ERP system in the world, not because it was the best CRM in the world, right? is because it looked at and understood real problems of a salesperson and a sales manager and catered a product just for that when they launched. Now they're a much larger product suite, so let's not talk about that, right? But, you know, startups fail because they look at overall industry and they try to solve too many problems for too many people in multiple industries, you know. Never build a product for a particular industry, right? Never. Just build a product for a person. Uber, I'm looking for a ride, right? I'm a person, I'm looking for a ride. Here's a person who can give me a ride. That's how they built their apps, right? Work, I'm a restaurant manager, I'm looking for a worker. I'm a worker, I'm looking for a gig. That's how we built it. Now, if you want to scale this to any industry, it's possible. But what do we believe this is worth? Now, as a project to the company, if I just charged cash for it, I would have probably gotten, you know, a very decent margin. I would have probably netted 30, 40% in it, right? Because the founders had the financial means to pay for this as a product. But I said, no, I don't want to just take money up front.
You need part of the project.
I want equity.
Yeah.
So Tournet owns 20% of this company,
Nice.
right? If we own 20% today, even when we get diluted down, by the way, this company is just, you know, that's the reason I picked this to show you, is because it's just got so much to it, right? Like, we're already piloting the app with a very, very large, restaurant chain. It's got every factor that's going to make it successful, and Tournet gets involved in the deep roots of it. Tournet's not just doing the technology development. Tournet's also doing the marketing. Tournet's also doing the sales. Tournet's also going to restaurants and saying, you need to be on this app in order to not just find talent. So even if you're not finding talent right now, that's fine. You can schedule your existing staff. Instead of using that piece of paper, you can schedule that staff here.
Yeah.
Right? Not just that. If you want to pay your staff members through the app instead of a payroll system, do that. You can even use a credit card to pay. Right? So, like, we're not just, when we partner with a startup, we're not just a technology partner. We partner in your business. Like, we get a board seat, we look at your strategy holistically, and we help you whatever we can. That's, I think it's very similar to, you know, you've faced problems hiring technology vendors.
Yeah.
Right? Like, and I know it hurts when I talk about this to you, but you know what I'm talking about, right? Like,
Yeah, absolutely experienced that pain.
You've experienced that pain to the worst possibility, where the situation became hostile, and, you know, they just didn't want to do what you were asking them to do, and continue to ask for more money, right?
Yeah.
So, those companies that do this, they're going to be there for another year, 2 years, 3 years, maybe someone will throw them a lifeline another 4 years, 5 years. They're making a living. They're not making a company around it, right? You can make a living by anything. When you're making a company, you're building a culture, you're building people, right? You're building customers, right? You're building vendors, you're building shareholders, you're building governments in some cases. It's like, it's a much larger responsibility. So if any of the entrepreneurs are listening, I would actually like to tell them, like, the impact that each decision that you make has on the larger planet is actually a lot more than you realize today. So don't try to just be selfish and make a living. Don't try to compromise on your values and the business model's values on day one. Like, don't. Someone gives you less money than you deserve, don't take it. Someone gives you, you know, an XYZ reason to not go with your services, don't move your business.
Yeah.
That's just one person's opinion. Come back, look at the facts. And lastly, what I'd like to tell them, and this is something I spoke about last week with you also, is that, you know, always surround yourself with people who may not be the smartest people in the room, who may not be the most hardworking people in the room, but would be absolutely honest with you in terms of anything that you give them. You know, like a lot of times you're just discussing with your co-founders or your core team saying, what do you think about this idea, right? Always follow facts, patterns, and not be opinionated on things that you believe or your team member of yours believe that this could be a hit.
Yep.
Right? Like look at any other story, Airbnb, right? Airbnb, it took them 4 or 5 years to understand their business model. Initially, they thought they were a bread and breakfast company.
Yeah.
Then they started selling, cereals. I don't know if you know
Yeah,
about this.
yeah.
Obama O's, right?
Yeah.
It took them some time to realize their business model, right? Like I'll give you an example. I'm starting another company with this was my idea, but I'm starting within Tournet, and I'm looking for a co-founder who I could give a decent chunk of equity to, and this person could basically scale the business, right? Along with me and my expertise and my team. But it's a gym alliance. So, I travel maybe 12 or 13 times in a year.
Okay.
And a lot of times when I'm traveling now, they're developing nations in very small cities. And that's because I'm trying to explore the infrastructure that exists and how can we upgrade that infrastructure, and if Tournet has a business opportunity there or not. But a lot of times there are no hotels there, so you're going to stay, you're staying in Airbnbs, you're staying in sort of homes, you're staying in hostels, you're basically spending the night, right?
Yeah.
Wherever you can, and wherever you can get the most amount of comfort there. There are no, and there's a gym, let's say next door, you don't have a membership for it, right? What do? You walk in and you say, okay, I'll pay for the day.
Yeah.
It's basically that. So we're doing a gym alliance globally. Every gym in the world will be part of this alliance. It's like a star alliance for gyms. So you could use any gym in the world, so whether it's Gold Gym, LA Fitness, Good Life Fitness, a small mom and pop gym, right? Anytime Fitness, whatever. These large chains will all come together. We'll make one gym alliance for the entire world. And I'm looking for this co-founder who can, talk to my contacts at Good Life, because we're doing so many things. Who've already said, yeah, we'd be more than happy to come on in something like this.
Yeah.
The business model is very simple. Gyms, they want more revenue because the marginal cost of getting a new member in for a day is zero. I already have machines. What is this person who's visiting me for a day is going to cost me? Like, tell me, what's the marginal cost of adding a new member to a gym? It's negligible, if any.
Yeah.
Maybe a bottle of water. Maybe this shower, right? That this person's going to use. Maybe their towel that this person, but that's it. So gyms are going crazy about this, right? Like a lot of gym chains in India, which is Anytime Fitness, Gold Life, they're like, Gold Gym. They're like, why wouldn't we? If you're paying us as a company, Gym Alliance would pay per visit to whichever gym they use and redeem their usage with. They don't care. Like, they're like, okay, we'll just do this. We will take the money for this one visit. And on the other hand, we can sell our gym package for a month, for a year, per visit to anyone. All you need is an app, Gym Alliance app. You download it. Whichever gym you want to search for near you, you search for that. You go to that gym, you pay per visit. You don't even have to sign up for the whole year. If you want to sign up for a month, you can. If you want to sign up for 6 months, you can. If you want to sign up for a whole year, you can. You don't have to. A lot of times, these gyms generally, they work on a monthly membership basis. That's why. Why is that? Because they know that if we continue to charge on a daily basis, people will have to think about that cost.
Yep.
Every time they come to the gym, and there's a high chance that they will stop coming. Now they've paid, majority of us still don't go, but they've got the revenue, right?
Yeah.
So I'm still looking for sort of a co-founder in that. So I continue to do these things.
So this is a concept that you brought up,
Yeah.
that you thought of. You want to use your company to build out. So you
Right.
need a co-founder to champion this.
And we do a lot of that. Like that's how KorsAll came about.
Yeah.
Right? KorsAll came about like that. There's a few logos that are not here, but there's an AI company that we built that does sentiment analysis. It's very cool. We actually did a sentiment analysis of Twitter in Iowa to figure out who's with Trump or who's with actually Biden.
Yeah.
Right? And you won't believe that the Biden was more favored
Really?
in Iowa
Really?
in tweets. Right? So it's crazy. But anyway, so we continue to like look at concepts. We looked at industries. Like for example, this Gym Alliance concept, right? It's not just something that we thought about and because we have the resources, we'll just go build it. There was a lot of market research we did. There are 3 competitors that exist. One of the competitors actually raised $300 million from SoftBank. Like this is a legitimate business, right? Like there's competition there. And this company started in Brazil, it got acquired. But my point is, we just don't take any and every idea that comes in the door. There's a lot of research, analysis, and thought that's given into starting a new company. There's another logo that's not here. It's called HOINS, Home Internet Security. I think I told you about it a little bit. Not a lot of people know, but if you give someone your Wi-Fi password at home, they have access to your credit card. Like they could access your credit card information, your passwords.
Is that through the router?
Yeah, that's through the router, right? So we're building a company, Home Internet Security, where if you download our app, we'll protect all your devices, iPads, iPhones, MacBooks, PCs.
Is that by encrypting the router? Like
we send an agent, yeah. That agent basically blocks anyone trying to phish anything through the router, through the network, right? Well, that's that. That company also provides parental control. So if you don't want your kids to use the iPad after 10 o'clock, that app enables you to control all that. You can set up parental control vision. So
like per device?
Everything for your whole house or per device. Like if your 16-year-old kid you don't want to do anything with, he's grown up. You don't want to interfere, but your 11-year-old kid, you don't want them to go, on the bad side of internet.
Yeah.
So you can control all of that through the app. So in that company, I found 2 co-founders. One is a cybersecurity expert at a Big Four. The other one is a teacher. They're both extremely motivated to go get this idea, and I gave them 65% of the company. I only retained 35, right? So a lot of times we will do all of this.
Yeah, I mean, you want the people who are championing, who are running the company to own majority shares.
Absolutely.
So they're on the ground running for themselves, right?
Absolutely.
And motivated, self-motivated.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's great, man. Like, I mean, that's one of the things. Like, you figured out a way. Like, you're an ideas man. Like, you like ideas. You like working on problems and solving problems, and you figured out this mechanism where you can now build these solutions out and launch them into the marketplace fast and efficiently. And you're pretty efficient at that, right? And how do you test and evaluate this process? Like, surely some companies that you do go through this process, they might not work out, whether it be the problem you're solving, the solution you provided, or the people running it, right? Is it a hedge by doing multiple companies at the same time? Do you hedge it out like that, or do you one at a time systematically?
So we don't hedge. If we're backing 10 companies, we sincerely believe that all those 10 companies are going to make it.
Yeah.
We're not like a traditional VC firm where if 1 out of 10 is a winner, we won. Mm-hmm. We want 10 out of 10. We actually believe that 10 out of 10 that we invest in are capable of making a home run.
Yep.
In terms of going there faster, that's very interesting. So I think that's what I really worked hard on. So I worked hard on setting processes, development standards, development processes that get us or give us the edge of launching faster than anyone else can. So at least in the realm that we compete in.
Yeah.
So imagine, you're a startup, you hire software engineers, you hire designers, you do all of this, and it takes you 2 months to kick off, and then you make a bunch of mistakes, which every startup makes. It takes you 8 months to launch a simple app so this is a 10-month life cycle, product life cycle, right? for the initial development of the app. I'm confident that no matter what it is, we could build it in a month and a half. That's because of processes, systems, and frameworks I've set in the team. So I come up with an idea, we validate that idea, we do a lot of research, we actually spend money to figure out if this idea is going to sell. We talk to VCs prior to even building the product, saying, if we were to build a company like this with these co-founders, right, with this business model, at what point would you be able to fund us to scale the business? Like we do all of this, we ask them. And we have all these partners who will be very honest and candid. Some of them say, we don't invest, and you'll have a hard time finding an investor for a business like this. Majority of times, however, we only go to them when we know it's going to be a yes. So they'll say, okay, you get to X amount of users per month with a year, month-over-month growth over this, and this much potential revenue, and we'll invest this much money. That's going to get you to this stage. As soon as we have that, like, our risk is gone.
Yeah.
All we have to do is figure out how much money is required for us to reach that position that the VC has set. Sometimes we don't even believe just one VC. We'll go to multiple VCs and get the same sort of answer or similar answers. A lot of them give you similar answers or same answers.
Yep.
Right? And then we'll say, okay, we'll come back to you. All we now have to do is figure out, okay, to get to this point, does it cost 6 months and $100,000? Does it cost 4 months and $200,000? Or does it cost $1 million and a year? And then it's just a matter of, can we afford it as a company? And if we can, we go out at it.
Yep. So what's your exit strategy here? Like, do you see a valuation-based exit strategy where, like, okay, you build this company up, the next stage investor comes in, and you exit at a certain point? Or do you are you more interested in creating long-term, like, cash-positive businesses, like cash flow businesses?
We're actually interested in long-term cash-positive businesses. Like, man, honestly, and I hate to, and I know, our time's going to end soon, but I hate to break this to the audience as well, whoever's listening. By not investing in sincere business models that can be profitable, we're just creating a bubble.
Yeah.
That's what I was doing initially when I started the company.
Yeah.
I was selling for 50, my cost was 100,000.
Yeah.
It's not sustainable. So we don't invest in companies thinking that a VC would come in and give it an X valuation and we would exit at that point. We genuinely believe that these businesses will be cash flow positive. Like, we believe in Wark's business model, right? Like, we believe in KorsAll's business model. We believe in Workerbee's business model. We believe in Sugar's business model. We didn't invest in them. E-service. We hold decent chunk of equity in this company. This is a 20-year-old company. We built a new mobile app for them, and we got equity into a 20-year-old company, right? Their revenues are through the roof since the app launched, right? Like, we invest in companies where we believe that once we have done our investment, which is mobile app development, web app development, any kind of software development, any kind of hardware versus software integrations, anything to do with technology, we only invest in companies where we know that after what we have done to that company, once the app is built, we know for a fact that the value is going to go up.
Yeah.
Right? Like, for example, Sugar. Before we built the app, the company was worth 200,000, right? We built the app and we got them 100 users. Now we know that those 100 users are generating this much revenue and the company's worth $1 million. Like, we won't invest in companies where we believe that there's not going to be any value uplift after investment.
Yeah.
Like, there's no point if I invest in Snapped. Snapped is already a large newspaper group. I don't want to invest in them. Right? There's no value uplift by me building a mobile app. Well, there is, but they're not going to realize that.
Yeah.
No one's going to pay them for it, right? At the same time, we don't look at exiting, in the next 3 to 5 years. Our strategy is a little bit different because once we invest in your company, who's your CTO as a startup? It's Tournet.
Yeah.
So I'm actually flowing business into Tournet by investing in companies. So if, people technology consulting companies spend, X amount of dollars every month to market their services. Suppose that X amount is $50,000. They're spending 50 grand every month to market their services to acquire clients, right? I'm spending that 50,000 in buying equity in a company. If I spend that 50,000 buying equity in a company, can anybody else win a sale from me?
No. Yeah.
So, that marketing budget may or may not work out.
Yeah.
This equity position definitely works out to acquire a client, right? And at least, hopefully, or at least that's our bet, that it'll pay off in the future. So that's.
I mean, that's quite a risk tolerance, right?
Yeah.
That you got to stay with a stomach.
Right.
That's really cool and really fascinating that you opened up about this. I mean, what you are doing is pretty unique. I mean, not a lot of people are able to do this, have the capability to do this, and have the stomach to, go through with it.
Right.
So thank you for coming on and talking about this. And hey, man, it's been an hour.
Oh, holy!
Right? It flies by, right?
Holy.
This has been great. Thank you for coming on. Look forward to seeing more projects that come out of Tournet and working continuously closely together, man.
Yeah, absolutely.
Right.
Thank you, man.
Yeah.
Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank
Bye,
you.
guys.